Welcome back. So in this video we're going to be talking about word wrapping when we have a long string like this lorem ipsum text we have here in this text box. It's all very well when we try and set this directly in the user interface, but I want to talk about what's going to happen when we try and set long strings in code and how we're going to deal with that in our code. So let's firstly stay here in the user interface for a minute and just have a quick look at a setting. In your inspector, when you're selected on your text field, you will see under the text box that you have an option if you scroll down that says horizontal overflow under paragraph, and it's currently set to wrap. If we were to set that to overflow, look what happens to the text. If I zoom out, it's just one long line. It ignores the fact that it's escaping the right hand side of the text box. So you're going to want that on wrap if you want to see it all. Alright, so now let's imagine we want to set a slightly longer story scene because we're trying to build a text adventure here, and we want to do that programmatically. So let's see where we are with our script. So far, when we hit the space key and this condition, we are just saying space key pressed. Let's try pasting all of that lorem text in there with a semicolon on the end. Now let's just have a look. It's horrible to deal with. So text.text equals, and I've got to scroll all the way across. I don't want to close brackets. I need to make sure I've got a semicolon on the end of the statement. Now let's just see if that works. I think you'll find it'll work okay, but let's just make sure. How are we going to know, by the way? Because it's going to start with a lorem text and then end up with a lorem text when we hit space. So I'm going to take it out in Unity. So what we have now in the starting state is no text. And then if we look over at our script, it's going to go to hello world on start, so we'll know that's working, and then it's going to go to this very long string when we hit the space key. Let's see all this happening. Click play. Hello world as expected. Now let's hit the space key. Okay, now our lorem text comes in just fine if we paste it into the script. So that's good, and the wrapping continues to work as we left it. The problem I have here is I don't really want any of my script to be more than a screen width. And having to scroll all the way across to see my text is just horribly unusable. Now I'm afraid there's no really elegant solution to this without doing something pretty esoteric. So I'm just going to show you how I suggest we lay out text in script. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, where have we got about a screen full? Over here somewhere. And we're going to close the string, put a plus on the end of the line. And then remembering that C# ignores white space, we can put a new line in. Now we've got a style question as to where do we start typing the next line. Well, I'm going to indent it to the same level as the previous quote was on the line above, and I'm going to put some quotes in like that. Now we need to be careful with our spaces. There's either a space on the end or the beginning. Better to have the space to my eye on the end of the previous line. So that's the pattern you want to continue in. Let's just make sure that this works for one concatenation or join of the strings, and then we'll talk about what to do next. Let's check it. Hello world. Yep, all fine. This transition is happening just fine. Great. So hopefully you can see what's happening here. We have a statement here. We have a plus on the end. C# is ignoring the white space. It would be exactly the same if we left it like that, where we just have a close of quotes and a reopening of the quotes. You'd say, what's the point? You'd be quite right, what's the point if it's all on one line? But the point is that if we want to put it on two lines, then we need to do this. You may say, well, why don't we just leave the quotes and the plus out like that and just put a new line? Let's see what happens if we do that. It just won't compile. It says we've got a new line in constant. You can't put a new line in the definition of this text element. All right, so you're going to have to close the quotes and concatenate. So this is the best we've got for you in terms of how you build a long text string. So by this pattern, what I would like you to do, I'll just do the next one for you, is I would like you to repeat this for the rest of the string, all right, so that none of it runs off the end of the screen. Little mini challenge for you. Pause the video and continue to bring all of this string down into a single screen width. Now, while you're at it, why not start writing your story? Why use my horrible lorem text? Certainly don't sit and try and write that out. Start writing your own story into here. And I'm going to pause the video, write my own story into this paragraph, and then I'll see you when we have both written our first screen of story. This is your starting screen on your story. In my case, my prisoner in his cell. See you soon. So welcome back. So here's my little story. You're in a prison cell and you want to escape. There are some dirty sheets on the bed, a mirror on the wall, and the door is locked from the outside. You may have the question, how do I actually put a new line in now if I want to? Because you may want to go on to give the user some instructions about what they can do. So here is how you put a new line in. You use a backslash like that and then an N, and it should come up in red like that. And you may end up needing 2 of them. So if you do that, then you're going to want to just continue in this pattern now, something like this. So press, I don't know, M to look, or L to look at mirror. What we need to do here, by the way, is look at our game design document and see what we decided in our state transition diagram. So we're in the cell and there's some sheets. So V for view, R for return. So let's make that happen over in the text. Press V to view sheets. Now let's look at our state diagram again. You see, we need to modify our state diagram. Take a look at this, and you realize at this stage, it's all very well saying view your sheets and return, view the mirror and return. But look, if we're using V for view, what are we viewing? Okay, so we're going to need to use S for sheets, M for mirror, and L for lock. So if you've got your own sketched diagram, go ahead and change that. Otherwise, I will change mine now. This is exactly the sort of thing you'll come across. You draw a diagram, it seems logical at the time, but when you come to implement it, there's an issue that doesn't make sense. So just update your diagram. So I'm going to go ahead and update the diagram now. Okay, so I've made that improvement in my diagram. Take a look now. Let's start with a cell. Do we have a unique key press for every transition we want to make? S for sheets, M for mirror, L for lock. Yep. And then if you were to look around the diagram, you'd find the same for mirror. From mirror, once we have the mirror, we could, once we're looking at the mirror, we could T for take or R to return, and so on. Cell mirror is where we're in the cell holding the mirror, at which point we can S to look at the sheets, holding the mirror. We can L to go to the lock. Okay, I'll change that to L for lock. And then you can see that you have a unique key press from every state, which is what we want. Okay, fantastic. So let's go back to our code. And now we know what we're going to say. This is the value of planning. So V to view sheets, well, it's S to view sheets, right? S to view sheets, press M to view mirror, and L to view lock. Now, before we carry on, check it back at our diagram. I'm just going to change this to lock for us, 1 second. Mirror becomes lock. Now, how you draw your game design documents is entirely up to you. You may want to use a piece of paper, a notebook, you may want to use Google Documents, you may want to use Word, whatever you like, as long as it works for you. Okay, so we have S, M, and L. Let's just check that that's right. S, M, and L. Okay, and I've put the I'm putting the capital letter in front of sheets, mirror, and lock just to emphasize that the L goes with lock, the M goes with mirror, and the S goes with sheets. Fantastic. Let's look at this in action now. Hit the space bar. You're in a prison, blah, blah. Okay, fantastic. So that's it, really. We've done what we want to do here. We've understood a lot more about long strings, about how they fit in UI text elements, about wrapping in terms of the paragraph horizontal overflow, and then over in code we found a way of dealing with paragraphs of text by concatenating consecutive lines like this, being careful with our spaces inside the quotes, and by using \n as the escaped new line character in order to insert new lines. I've put 2 new lines in because if you look in the game, there are actually 2 new lines. One brings you onto this next line after the first paragraph. The next new line creates that nice separation between the description and the affordance as to what you should be doing next. So, well done with that. You've learnt a lot that lesson, and I'll see you shortly.